Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us tonight on episode 40. I can't believe it's 40 already.
I know. We're getting old.
We kept it up for a long time. Tonight is a very special episode. We're going to talk about the night that we met, which is actually 27 years to the date that we met. And actually, 27 years ago, it was the day before Thanksgiving.
In other words, it's exactly the same day because
Yes.
when we met, Thanksgiving was November 25th.
Right.
So the day we met was November 24th.
So it was kind of funny because we record on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, and then we were going to discuss this anyway. And they're like, let's just look up the date of 1993. And it was today. So it was just like, that was kind of fun.
It was quite the surprise.
Yeah. So it worked out perfectly that we're going to talk about the day that we met. So, like I said, we met the day before Thanksgiving. At the time, I was a personal banker at a bank, and I had worked all day. I knew I was going to be with my family the next day. So my dream evening was getting off work, going to Blockbuster, getting a couple movies, getting a frozen pizza.
Did you rent Rochelle?
Yeah. I don't even know what I rented, which is so funny. It would be funny if I did remember. It wasn't Pretty in Pink. Got a couple movies, got a pizza, got home, got my pajamas on, put the pizza in the oven, gonna live my best life. And then my girlfriend called and asked me to come out. And I was like, I don't want to come out. I'm already home. It's like cozy. It was cold. I think it was chilly that night.
Yeah, it was definitely cold. For
So
sure.
it's like one of those things where you like have a thing in your mind, like this is going to be how I'm spending my evening. I wasn't in the mood to just cancel all that and everything, but she was very persistent and I was like, all right, fine. So I took the pizza out of the oven, dumped in the shower, got all cute.
Did you eat the pizza?
Did not.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it was like half cooked and I just like put it back in the box and threw it back in my freezer. So I was classy like that. So we met at a bar to meet our friends, which was always like a popular time for people to come together, especially back out of college. Even people who moved away came back to visit their family. So it'd be a fun time to come out. So I did come out.
And for me, well, of course, a couple funny things. Number one, I owned a house right across the street from where we are now.
Yes.
And that's where I was living at the time. By myself.
We haven't gone far.
Yeah. Well, we've moved other
Yes.
places, but as it happens, we ended up back on the same block. So I lived over there, and for probably about 10 years before we met, there was a tradition among all the people I went to high school and college with. We'd always meet at a place, not the same bar, but a place called Goldie's in Forest Park. Night before Thanksgiving, everybody would show up. And it wasn't like a planned thing, it just was if you were around, you went and showed up. And it's kind of telling because apparently after about 10 years, it had started to taper off. The tradition had started to taper off. So I went there on the assumption that there would be a group of people there. I went there with two friends, Joel and John. Joel, we've commiserated about before. Well, we've mentioned before.
Yes.
Joel, who knows everyone under the sun. We were laughing.
I'm surprised I didn't know him.
Yeah, right, exactly. We were laughing a minute ago because we were talking about Joel, that we were at a concert in the city seeing our friend Garland Jeffries perform. And we were talking with Garland Jeffries' wife, who we know, Claire Jeffries. And there was another woman there also talking to her. Anyway, long story short, turns out the other woman also knows Joel and knows him well.
Yeah.
So Joel knows everybody. But so back to Thanksgiving 1993. So we went to the usual place and no one else showed up. Or there may have been, like our friend Nate might have showed up and then had to take off because he had little kids at home or whatever. So it was kind of like, that tradition was sort of coming to an end and we weren't really ready to let go of it. So we're there at Goldie's and it's boring. Goldie's is a lovely place, but the reason why we would always go there is it's very quiet and it's not like the bars where people our age would hang out. So it wasn't loud and rowdy and all that.
Right.
And so you could get a decent sized group of friends together and have
And there's like a really long table that you can set up, so it's just kind of like a big thing.
Well, they always put the tables together for
Yeah.
us. And my friend Nate knew the owner and it was just that kind of thing. But clearly at this point, the tradition was starting to peter out.
Yeah.
So Joel and John and I are sitting there, and it's not that late. It was probably only 10:30, 11 o'clock at night or something. And we're like, well, this is dumb. Let's go. So we go to this place called Duffy's.
Which I was already at with my friends.
Jennifer's already there with her friends. Joel and I, we were also joking because it was not like an insanely rowdy place all the time, but before we met, the number one memory I had of Duffy's was being there on Christmas Eve a few years earlier and somebody getting thrown through a plate glass window.
Yeah.
At about 12:30 at night, Christmas. I guess Christmas morning, really.
Right.
That was pretty surreal. You don't see that every day.
No.
But so anyway, we're there and we're sitting at this table by the front entrance, by the plate glass window the guy got thrown through a few years earlier. And there was a jukebox on the wall right next to it. My friend John hated that jukebox. He would always say that someone should design a jukebox where, you put $1 in to play songs. If you don't like the song, you can put $2 in to cancel it.
Right.
Like,
because you'd always have that person who would play the same song over and over
like
again.
the 18 Frank Sinatra
my
songs
God.
in a row.
Yeah.
It's 1993, people. We don't
Yeah.
need to listen to
So I was at a
Frank
table
Sinatra.
with my friends, and then I got money to put money in the jukebox. So I walked over to the jukebox, and David and his friends were there. So I just remember
this strange person. Joel, not me.
yeah. Well, you could tell that part of the story.
Yeah, so my friend Joel, he's funny. Joel is a lovely person. He's been married for many, many, many years, longer than us. He was married at the time, so for the record, he meant no harm. He was not looking to make time with another lady. But he starts talking to Jennifer while she's trying to put money in or maybe you were waiting because someone else was at the jukebox.
I was waiting because somebody else was in front of me.
I think he was just trying to embarrass me, really, because he was trying to draw me into this conversation. I was single, and he was like, "Oh, Dave can tell you what song," and I'm like, "I don't know you. I'm not gonna pretend like I know."
Like you don't know if I have a boyfriend or something
right?
like
Exactly,
that. So.
exactly. And I obviously have no idea what music you're interested in or whatever. And it was a very
Celine
awkward
Dion.
moment. Joel will talk to anyone under any circumstances. I'm not necessarily like that. So it was a very awkward situation for me.
So we did kind of pick out songs together. I think we did.
That's right. Although I couldn't tell you what.
No idea. So then I went back to my friends. You went back to your friends, and then later you came over.
Yeah. Well, I was I was still kind of embarrassed by the whole thing. So I felt like I should go and say, "I'm sorry."
My apologies.
For my strange friend who dragged you into this very awkward, uncomfortable conversation. But then we actually had like a legit conversation.
We did. We ended up talking the rest of that night.
Basically, yeah.
And fun fact.
And your sister showed up at one
many
point.
times because she was working at
That's
the
right. More than once, right.
She was working at a bar across the street making pizzas.
Right.
And so
good pizzas, as it turns out.
Amazing pizzas. And so anytime she had a break, she'd run over and hang out with us for a little bit and then come back over and back and forth, which is kind of funny.
Well, that was fortuitous because I met your sister as well.
Right.
And then also
knew I was a twin.
Well, that's true. That's right. Yeah, I must have, obviously, because you look alike. In any event, also your friend who called you.
My friend Shannon.
Was someone I knew from high school, strangely enough. Just a weird coincidence.
So after we started talking and then getting to know each other, obviously we grew up near each other our whole lives, like a mile and a half from each other. So our paths could have crossed at some point during our lives, but we went to the same high school.
Well, especially because didn't you also work at the same bar across the street where your sister did?
Yes.
And I know that Joel and I frequented that bar, so it's actually quite possible.
But I was thinking, like, what if we cross paths when we were little, like at
that's also true,
park or a grocery store or something like that.
That's also true.
But yeah, my friend Shannon, who dragged me out that night, graduated the same year that David did in high school, so we had that in common. Of our siblings, everyone lived in the Chicago area except for my brother and David's brother. They both lived in Des Moines.
Yeah,
so
that was kind of
like weird, you know, like my brother lives in Des Moines, and he's like, I have a brother who lives in Des Moines. So it's just like, that's weird.
Yeah, I mean,
but
it's convenient. It's not like Des Moines is necessarily all that far away, but my brother was the only person I knew who lived there.
Yeah. So that made it convenient to visit both families when we went to visit there. But the fun thing is, after 27 years, is I still have the this
It's a coaster
yeah. I was like, what is this? It's a coaster
from
from
Duffy's.
Duffy's with my name and phone numbers for him, and that's the very first night I gave him my both phone numbers for home and
No one,
work.
by the way, had ever given me a phone number before. Not only that, I'd never asked anyone for a phone number before that, and I
And I'm
don't.
like, hey, here you go.
Well, it was the bar, it was closing time,
Yes,
and so you jotted them down. And the funny thing is that we can show it because the numbers are no
they do not
longer.
exist, and you don't know the
Don't
area.
call
You
who
don't know the area code either.
you don't know the area code, but don't start randomly dialing these numbers because we don't want to upset someone else. But my
Yeah.
favorite part is that on the second one it says HM, which I deciphered was an abbreviation for home. But as it turns out,
That was my work number.
the numbers were reversed.
I might have had a couple drinks that night.
Well, maybe,
Yeah.
but
Either way, you ended up calling me.
I think I called both numbers. And the funny thing is, now that I think about it, I just remembered this. I called you Friday, so we met the night before
Wednesday night.
Thanksgiving. I called you Friday. I called you from my office, as it turns out,
Oh,
because I remember going into work and it was dead.
and I was
Nobody
probably
there.
working too because I worked at a bank and it was always open.
That's right, but I don't remember which. I think I called both numbers, and I figured out that they were reversed.
Because that was before I had a cell phone, right?
Oh, it was definitely before
Yeah, no cell phone.
I had, well, the first cell phone I owned was when we had our first child,
Right.
I think.
I think so too.
So in any,
So there's no choice but to give you my home and work phone number.
Yeah.
So I had an answering machine.
I had a beeper when
Yes.
you were pregnant,
Yeah.
so that you could page me if I was in court, and I could
That's
duck
like
out.
sounds so archaic to say
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But we met that Thanksgiving, and then pretty much you asked me out, and then from then on in we were
Right.
together.
I called you on that Friday. We went to dinner at a really nice Mexican, well, it wasn't fancy nice, but really good Mexican
Yeah.
restaurant on Sunday night, which is funny because, it's kind of a low key first date on a Sunday night. You got to get up and go to work the next day. So it's not like you're going to go too crazy.
Yeah.
But then I don't recall whether it was then or I called you like the next day, whatever it was. But we already had made a plan for the next weekend. We went to see a concert. We went to see C.J. Chenier.
Right.
We just saw back in February here again at the
One of our
same
last
place.
concerts we
Yeah,
went to.
it was like the second to last concert we went to, I think, before everything, the world came to an end.
Yeah.
And then we went to see, I don't know if I have the exact sequence of events. Our second date was definitely at Fitzgerald's.
Yep.
The third or fourth, we went to see that Michael Keaton movie that was a serious movie that was called My Life.
Yes.
Where he's dying. That's a great.
Dying.
However, I will say you wanted to see that one.
I
That
probably
was
did.
your
yeah.
choice. I remember.
It was
that.
good, but
And
it
I
was just
like,
kind of like,
we could go see that.
I guess I'll see that with you. So yeah,
It
we
was
did.
good.
It was good.
And then we saw Wayne's World 2, I think.
We did.
Not even the first Wayne's World. I think it was
Yeah.
the second one.
Good times.
Good times.
But then fast forward, I met his whole family that Christmas, the day after Christmas that same year.
Yeah, you were
so
sort
like
of
a month.
trapped from that point on.
Yeah, then it was like I was introduced to everybody, so I better stay, kind of thing. But I do remember one of my favorite is meeting your mom for the first time because she had left to pick up her sister who was a nun. And so David picked me up and got there. He's got a very large family, so 10 brothers and sisters, people married, kids. It was like overwhelming to meet that many people.
There were probably 50 people there.
So as I was saying, meeting everybody the day after Christmas, just after a month of us dating, was awesome. But I remember his mom specifically when she came back from picking up her sister. She just came up to me and she put her hands on my face and she was like, "Hello," and it was just like so nice and everything. So and it just obviously growing up in the same town and being around the same people, we were bound to have things in common. So I think that was also a comforting thing to meet somebody that, is grew up like you, kind of thing, has the same likes and interests and things like that. Don't you agree?
Oh yes, I absolutely agree. And 27 years later, you still can't get rid of me. Yeah,
Stuck for life.
it was funny that I mean we didn't have all that many friends in common, but we did have some. Your friend Shannon,
Yep.
who is, if I remember correctly, was our senior class president when I was in high school and was very popular. I don't think we had some classes together. I mean, we knew each other.
She was the bridesmaid in our wedding.
She was, but I'm talking about back in high school.
Yeah.
I don't know that I ever had a conversation with her because I probably would have been intimidated. But turned out to be very well. She was nice back then. I just didn't. I was
Right.
just intimidated by people who were popular, whatever. But that's kind of funny that you knew her. And then when we went to it had to be my 20th reunion
Yep.
in 2000. I think you knew more people than I did.
I did know a lot of people only because the bar that my sister and I worked at was owned by somebody who was also graduated with
one
you,
of my classmates,
and so there was a
yes,
lot of
Steve.
people around that
But I
that
knew
hung out.
him.
That's true.
I knew him. We also had class. That's how I knew people in high school. We had classes together.
Yeah, and we went to a very large high school, so there's like 4,000, close to 4,000 kids. So you're bound to know somebody or that in common. But yeah, we just thought it was funny that we're going to share a picture. We actually went last night. We got in our car and drove over there, which is still just like a mile from our house. The bar is still there. However, because all of the corona, there's nothing open. So it was like
Yeah.
just ghost town. So we took a picture last night and in front of the bar just so we could share it with you guys. It's still there.
They do, I guess, do some carry-out business, but see, part of the
And-
problem is they don't have a kitchen.
Yeah.
So the only thing since the beginning of all this, when everything first shut down in Illinois, and then now that it's kind of shutting down a little bit again, they've at least allowed bars and restaurants to do carry-out. But I don't think you can make a tremendous amount of money on
And I was
carry-out
thinking since it
cocktails,
was
you know.
like closed last night that maybe they do that on the weekends only.
Yeah,
I'm not
I
sure.
suspect it's not. Just as an aside, we have a nephew who has a bar in Des Moines. My brother lives out there, and one of the dilemmas that they faced was if they were to only partially open up, that would be difficult to actually sustain the business. They did
'Cause they have
carry
more
out
staff
stuff,
and-
right? But the balance doesn't work out when you start bringing more
Mm-hmm.
people in, and then obviously your expenses go up. Anyway, totally off topic. But so Duffy's apparently is open for at least some part of the time for carry out. We'll have to.
And
think about
sometimes over the years on our anniversary, we would go out to dinner and then go back there for like a happy hour or cocktail nightcap thing. And I just remember one time, it was probably like our 10-year
I think so.
anniversary.
Yeah, I think it was.
And there were still people hanging out there when we hung out there. And it was just kind of like,
Including the guy whose name I don't recall, and two wouldn't probably say on video if I did, but he was generally known at the time as the mayor of Madison Street.
I know who you're talking about.
Madison Street being
Still there.
the main drag through the next town, which is was always had a lot of bars there because our hometown originally was dry, so all the bars cropped up immediately to the
Next
west
door.
of us. Right. So yeah, Madison Street is the place where all the bars are and restaurants. Yeah. Some quite good actually.
And it was always, since my sister and I worked at the bar across the street, I remember like my mom making some comment one time, like, you're not going to meet your husband at a bar. I'm like, I didn't meet him at that bar. I met him across the street. But it was before there was any dating sites or apps or anything like that. So obviously that's where a lot of people met back in the day.
It was, I didn't expect it to happen.
Yeah. But that's what I think about, like, all the different things that had to align for us to meet that night. There was a lot of things in place. What if all your friends had showed up to Goldie's? You probably wouldn't have gone to Duffy's. What if I was happy in my pajamas and said I didn't want to come back out again? I mean, we wouldn't have our
today
kids. We wouldn't have anything.
Right. Today you'd just go to the bar in your pajamas because that's what people
Right.
do. But in the 90s, we were more formal.
Yeah. I actually even remember the outfit that I wore because I do remember the outfit that I wore that night.
I can't say that I remember what I was wearing.
So we just thought we'd share a fun story about the night that we met 27 years ago today. So we hope that you're safe where you are and yet you have a great Thanksgiving and can enjoy what you can with your family. But we will definitely talk to you later and we'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Bye.